radio frequency microwave radiation, that's to say electromagnetic fields, EMFs at night, it's like shining a bright light right down your pineal gland, right? Your third eye here.
Yes.
And it shuts off or it
Diminishes at least.
diminishes your production of melatonin.
Welcome to Creativity with Purpose, where we explore the stories, struggles, and sparks that shape our creative lives. I'm your host, Mracek, author, healer, and believer in the power of meaningful expression. Together, we'll dive deep into what it means to create with heart, live with intention, and heal through the beauty of storytelling.
Hi, this is Mracek, and welcome to Creativity with Purpose. Today, we're interviewing Lloyd Burrell. Lloyd is creator of the international award-winning documentary series, Electric Universe, author of Amazon bestseller, Healing with Vibration, author of the EMF Practical Guide, and founder of ElectricSense.com, which has helped over 1 million people since its inception in 2009. Lloyd is passionate about energy mastery and supporting people to understand their true energetic nature and to live a life of elevated health, purpose, and consciousness. Hi, Lloyd. How are you doing?
Beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you. I'm doing great. Thanks. I'm
Excellent.
so happy to be here with you and talking and exchanging with you. And I know this is going to be a lot of fun and hopefully people are going to learn a lot.
Excellent. You know, we both start with a basic understanding that what we perceive as solid mass is really energy. We are made of electricity. We are electric vibrating beings. And I know that is your fundamental focus. I have a similar understanding because when I wrote Unpacking the Attic, I was dealing with the leftover imprints of those signals from childhood that were still trailing my current self. So both of us are looking for underlying causes to heal traumas and also physical illness. But before we go down that path, I want our audience to have a really good foundational understanding of what is EMFs.
Yeah.
Can you explain that to me?
I'll try. So the really simple explanation, Anne, is EMFs are these invisible forces which surround us. Okay. And we're actually, so EMF, just to sort of explain what that acronym means.
Yes.
Electromagnetic fields. And electromagnetic fields are actually everywhere. And as you just alluded to, it's all about energy. And to give you a term that I like, an expression that I like to employ, which kind of goes around in circles, is everything is energy and energy is everything. And that's very profound and easy. Like a lot of this stuff it's easy to say, but to actually integrate that into your life and for that to have meaning and for that to guide your life so that you can live a better life, that's a whole different ball game.
Right.
And so, so it's these invisible forces. And how did this all come into my life is because, well, I'm actually like a failed accountant, if you want, but I never failed because I passed my exams and everything, like a chartered accountant in the UK, but what you call a CPA in the US. But I hated all that. And I moved to France, and one day over 20 years ago, I answered my cell phone and I got this weird feeling, which in the matter of a few moments, a few calls, became these very debilitating symptoms. And this is how it all started. And really just kind of out the blue, but obviously I've had a lot of time to think about this and understand it. And it wasn't so out of the blue. There's a lot behind all of that and what happened, including trauma, notably, which we can go back to.
Yes.
But so electromagnetic fields, to not go too deep down the rabbit hole straight away, there are these invisible forces which surround us, which enable our bodies to function. Everything is energy. And really, quite simply, there are two kinds of energies, Anne. There are electromagnetic energies
Mhm.
And there are what we call subtle or life force energies, and all
Okay.
of them makes the everything that is. And it's really that simple. And what became my focus for a number of years was understanding what was happening to me, quite simply, because I was really
Yes.
sick and I was reacting to everything, my TV, my computer, the
Mhm.
landline, the radio in the car. We didn't even have Wi-Fi at home, and so it was really kind of a low EMF environment that I was living in. And so yeah, it was figuring out all of that, and and I'm very grateful that all of this happened to me, because I have this understanding of energy now, which few people have. Not to say that I understand it better than anybody in particular, but I have a very particular understanding. I actually live it. I feel it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that really, in a nutshell, to keep it tight, is what EMFs are.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I think you and I both started from the fundamental need to heal our own selves, our own suffering. I wrote Unpacking the Attic as just my own journaling for my own healing. As my parents moved into assisted living and I emptied their home, it was as if the items from my childhood, and here's the energy again, had
Mm,
their own living energetic.
yes.
They were imbuing within me the ability to go back and see childhood memories and traumas that I would not, I think, had the ability to re-access. And
Yes.
I was triggered by those items to remember. And I discovered that the causation of most of my traumatic emotional baggage, shall we say, was actually stemming from those experiences in childhood. So for
Yes.
me, it was just a healing journal. I put it in the file cabinet. I never intended to make it public. I never intended to publish. And then 8 years passed with that manuscript sitting in my file cabinet. My father passed away, who was always the real aggressive partner in all of this story. But 3 a.m. one night, I was awoken with this message loud and clear in my mind. The title of your book is Unpacking the Attic. And I'm laying there going, thank you. What book? Completely. It was not in my consciousness at all. And I
Mm,
kept hearing, it's time. You need to help others.
mm,
You need to share. It's time. Well, the next morning I woke up. There was a letter in my inbox from who ended up being my editing company. I never reached out to them. I'd never heard of them before. And then my husband's like, it's a sign you have to call. And then 9 months later, here we have the finished book, Unpacking the Attic. And it is helping so many people understand the energetics of the causation of their trauma. And it
yes.
seems to me that your healing journey started in a similar type way where you were on a personal healing journey for the causation and ended up having a passion to share it for others.
Yeah, that's actually what happened. Was that I realized, so I had no clue really as to what this energy was, what was
Yes.
happening, when I was using my cell phone. But
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was a cell phone because people go to me, well, yeah, how did you figure this out? And it was like, well, the phone next to my ear was really painful. I
You
took it
could
away
feel
and
it.
the pain went
Yeah.
away. It was
Uh-huh.
that simple. And so that when I began to explore it, I learned that it was, we call this electromagnetic fields, these energies that these cell phones use.
Yes.
And I began delving into the research, but it was really reluctantly, because I thought I was going mad. And I'm
Mm.
sure you've had this kind of,
Yes.
how, like, society has norms, and I'm a bit of a skeptic, to be honest. And
Mm-hmm.
my father was, well, he had many jobs, but one of them was a policeman. And so I was very formatted in a way, and I went to
Right.
be an accountant. There's nothing more square than being an accountant, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not knocking it. There's great, there's some great people that are accountants, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And so when all of this happened, it kind of shook my world, because not only because I got very sick and I had doubts about myself because I thought there was something like wrong with me.
Right.
It
Right.
wasn't the case, which I can explain, but it was like, well, why is this not being talked about? And then when
Right.
I began to dig deeper, I realized that these electromagnetic fields that these devices emit, and it's not only cell phones, it's all kinds of devices. It's so there's really two categories. There's wireless and wired. And people, when I
Okay.
say that, people are like, but what are you talking about? Why, if it's on a wire, it's safe, it's in a wire. But no, unfortunately, what's on a wire doesn't stay on a wire unless it's a special shielded wire. And
Uh-huh.
these energies permeate out into the room and into you. And it's
Sure.
terms for this are electric fields, magnetic fields, and dirty electricity.
Yeah.
And so that's wired EMF exposures, and wireless is all of this other stuff, which
Mhm.
our world is just, we're just drowning in it,
Mhm.
but people aren't aware for a whole load of reasons. One of them, that it's been swept under the carpet
Yes.
because so much money to be made out from our government selling off the licenses, and
Sure.
selling phones and all of that. And also because people love it and they don't want to even give it up. Even if we tell them the truth, it's a bit like smoking. They don't want to admit it.
Yes.
So there's like, and all of that is everything smart. So, but what does that mean? Well, maybe heard of smart meters, the devices which enable your like electricity or gas meter to communicate information back to the utility company. But all our homes are pretty much full of smart devices. That's to say, like TVs and washing
Uh-huh.
machines and uh, cookers and all kinds of like even toothbrushes, babies' diapers. And
Oh,
all of this, yeah, it's really sick.
oh,
And
heaven.
yeah, and all of this is actually radio frequency microwave radiation,
Yeah.
Bluetooth,
Yeah.
radio frequency microwave radiation. And when I say that, you're like, what? Radiation? You mean like Chernobyl? And I'm, well, no, not exactly, but kind of. The
Kind
only
of.
difference is, yeah, it's radiation. It's
Yeah.
just lower energy, but so there's so much science behind this, decades of peer-reviewed science. And this is what I learned,
Yes.
which shows that all of these exposures have adverse, what they call in the literature, adverse biological effects. And it's how they impact our cells, notably, and how they impact our organs. So we're composed of cells. And
Yes.
all of the man-made energy,
Hmm.
which is rather wonderful, enables us to do all of these things, is actually very dangerous. And is actually, Anne, it's working with the trauma, with the toxins from the chemicals, with the poisons in our atmosphere from whatever pollution, atmospheric pollution, and so on. All of this is really what's driving what I call dis-ease and what a medical doctor would call disease.
Right.
Um, and it's driving all of this. And there's links, notably, I mean, when we look at the research, it's not that Lloyd is kind of weird and, only affects people like Lloyd. It impacts everybody.
Everyone.
That's what studies tell us. And what we're beginning to learn, what I've put together, two and two together, and other researchers and experts and so on, is that it's all working together, all of this,
Mhm.
like the trauma, like what happened in your past, and all of these small events, which small but nevertheless important, which you couldn't deal with. And so you store it away, and that is a discordant energy, if you
Yes.
want to put it simply. And these man-made EMFs, that's a big discordant energy. We've got 5G, we've got satellites in space, and we don't realize it, Anne, but we're just absolutely bombarded
Yeah.
by all of this. And then one day, people wake up and they go, well, I got this, I got that, I got Alzheimer's, I've got Parkinson's, I've got cancer, it's like, well, is there any wonder? And
Yeah.
so that's why I talk about this, so people can understand that, oh, hang on a minute, that phone, which is really great and enables me to do, look, mine's on airplane mode, um, which is really great and enables me to do so many things, and all of this technology, which is really wonderful and is so convenient, it has a big downside.
Yeah.
And
There
so
is a
really
price.
there is a price to pay, and that is a part of my message. But the
Right.
bigger message is it's all about energy. It's all about energy in so many ways, and ways that we're just beginning to understand. But there is a lot of science behind the dangers of these electromagnetic fields.
Right. Absolutely. And from my own experience, I initially reached out to you because I am suffering also from the environmental electric field. I think it affects my aura because we all know
Yes.
as human beings, we radiate our own electric field around us. I have a very strong aura and it's very sensitive. And I have developed tinnitus. I seem to actually hear the EMF radiation.
Mm.
And if I am in an environment where I have as little as possible EMF around me, the tinnitus goes away. But I hear this constant. It's not an ear. We know now it's a brain function. And I hear this high pitched scream. And even working with the computer as we are now, it has amped up the volume on this tinnitus, on this screaming that I hear in my ears. When I am nature bathing and I'm walking in the woods barefoot, I don't hear it. So
Yes.
I can understand exactly where you're coming from, that some people may not be understanding that some of their physical symptoms are actually coming from the electric field. And I think that's a clarity that you are bringing as a service to everyone to understand how we can best navigate in this electric pollution, if you will, and what we can do to help ourselves. And
Yes.
how does someone know if they're being physically impacted by the EMFs?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, actually. So to go back to what you were speaking about, which you call the aura, and by the
Yes.
way, that symptom you had
Mm-hmm.
and is very common. There's a
Oh,
whole load of symptoms, but tinnitus is very common, is a
yeah.
very common complaint for an EMF as an EMF symptom, if you want. And
Mm-hmm.
I can give some, I can talk about what kind of symptoms so people can understand in a moment. But to answer your question, so what you call the aura, scientists are now calling the biofield, and it's basically
Sure.
the same thing. It's
Same.
it's an organizing field of energy which surrounds us and which permeates us. And it's very important to understand that. It's not just around you, it actually goes through you. And
Yeah.
it's so an organizing field of energy. So what does that mean? What that means is energy is actually primary. So that's to say energy comes first and
Yes.
the physical manifestation comes second. It's the energy that dictates your physical composition, your physical well-being. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's research. I mean, all of this is research I'm talking about. It's all backed up by research. And
Yes.
uh, Dr. Beverly Rubik, for those that want to look into this, who's done some wonderful research on the biofield, and it's measurable. And there's lots of people, lots of devices now. It's not that difficult to do even. You don't like have to have a laboratory. There are all kinds of biofeedback machines which can measure
Oh,
this.
yes,
It's very,
definitely.
yeah, it's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
But people are like, well, yeah, because I think we've all heard of people that can, and I've met people that can see auras. I can't see auras, but I've met people that can do that. So this all
Interesting. I see auras of plants.
There you go. So everything living has an aura,
Mhm.
and an aura is a biofield, quite simply. And the ancients called it the aura. We call it the biofield, like 21st century science. So
Uh-huh.
it's a term which is accepted by the National Institutes of Health. It's a real thing. And what we know is that EMFs impact this biofield. We can measure it. They can
Yes.
actually see it. It's like shrink.
Hmm.
It like puts holes in it if you want. And so this is important because it's not just, well, that doesn't look pretty. It's important because your body, remember I said your energy comes first. So
First.
it's like an energetic blueprint. And if you damage this blueprint, if you damage this communication, there's a communication between your biofield and your physical well-being, then
Yes.
if you damage that, guess what? You damage your physical well-being.
Right. You
And
manifest in symptoms.
you start manifesting symptoms. And
Mhm.
so everything, it's always something happens that it happens always first at the energetic level. It's like traditional
Yeah.
Chinese medicine, you know, those that consult
Mhm.
traditional Chinese medical doctors. If you get sick, you fire your traditional Chinese medicine doctor because he's not done his job, because he should know, because he sees in your energies exactly what's going on. So
Right.
energy, we can see it in our energies and it's impacting our energies. And so, but obviously everybody doesn't have a device to measure their biofield at home. But I'll tell you one thing you can do to know,
Yes.
assuming you're not going to go into a clinic and get this done. It's very, very simple.
I want to encourage everyone to download Lloyd Burrell's free science-backed e-guide to discover 20 signs you might be suffering from EMFs. Natural strategies to protect your body at the cellular level. No pills, no gadgets. The EMF trigger that disrupts your energy, immunity, and longevity. There are amazing scientists and researchers studying how to harness consciousness to heal. All of these experts share concrete tips, the how to shift the needle and create radical transformation in your life. What do you think enables your body to be able to recover, or not, from anything? What if you could learn the science behind turning on that healing power? I'm talking about elevation of consciousness. Lloyd's free guide is a must for your life's journey to thrive in health and creative expression. I will post the link in the description below.
Is you go away for a long weekend or a few days or at
Mhm.
least one night, you go camping.
Mhm.
You go somewhere where there's no, you know, you go up the mountain where there's no cell phone connection and there's no overhead power lines and there's none of that. And well, you're allowed to take your cell phone, but leave it in the car and don't switch it on. You know, it's
Right.
just like for an
Right.
emergency. But anyway, if there's no cell phone connection, there's no point in having it. But anyway,
Right.
and you see how you feel. And you
Yes.
see how you feel after even one night, after two nights, after three nights, and you'll see how you feel. And this is the litmus test to know if EMFs are impacting you. It's a very simple way. Um, and the second way of doing this, if you don't want to go camping, is in your home. A little test you can do is to switch off the Wi-Fi at night, because a lot of
Oh,
people sleeping in Wi-Fi
sure.
as if, because the thing is, what we know, there's a lot of science behind this. What, you know, like radio frequency, so Wi-Fi is actually radio frequency microwave radiation, and
Okay.
that to your pineal gland, which is a very important gland
Yes.
for psychics, people who are like connected and all of that, is where it's not exclusively where, because we now know that it's created throughout the body and the cells, but melatonin, which is a very important hormone, is created there, is secreted there. And we know that radio frequency microwave radiation, that's to say electromagnetic fields, EMFs, at night, it's like shining a bright light right down your pineal gland, right? Your third eye here.
Yes.
And it shuts off, or it
Diminishes at
reduces,
least.
diminishes your production of melatonin.
Right.
And
Which is
so
a
just for
sleep
that,
hormone, isn't it?
it's
Melatonin
called
is
a
our
sleep
sleep hormone.
hormone.
Right.
It's called a master hormone by certain experts. It's a very important antioxidant. It's got
Yes.
cancer protective properties.
Hmm.
It's important. It regulates your sleep wake cycle, what we call the circadian rhythm. So it's a
Yes.
very, very important hormone. And so sleeping in Wi-Fi diminishes your ability to produce melatonin, therefore kind of knocks your circadian rhythm out of sync, and which has really very profound benefit, effects on your health. And so by switching your Wi-Fi off, that is already a good little test. Do that for already one night. I mean, I've said this to a number of people and they've done it and they've woke up in the morning and they've gone like, ah,
So
yeah,
that's a good night's sleep,
okay.
right?
I see what he's talking about now.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is real,
And
and
to
so
maintain health, we need to go into that rest and recovery, repair and renew, and that's during sleep. And if we don't get that proper sleep, we're not repairing the damage that has happened to ourselves, our bodies, both physically and emotionally. And so we keep getting into this cortisone fight and flight rather than going back into that repair and renew, which is accumulative and causes physical dis-ease.
exactly. And to put it into one word, it's like sleep is when your body heals. It's
Yes,
when your body heals. It's
exactly.
when so your body is trying to heal all day long, but it's when the real healing takes place. So if your sleep is suboptimal, and like quality of sleep is when you sort of like you can sleep for 8 hours and you can think, well, yeah, I've had a good sleep, but you're not perhaps going through your into deep sleep cycle phases. We go through these sleep cycles, and to
Yes.
actually go into that deep phase, then some people are simply not doing it because of a whole load of reasons. And one of them
Mhm.
is these EMF exposures, not just from Wi-Fi. I'm just giving you an example of something
Sure.
simple because there's so many exposures, but that is already one simple thing. To answer your question, what can we do to know? How do I
Right.
know
Right.
if I've got, if I'm sensitive to EMFs? But the
Mhm.
other way to know is kind of look, well, am I reacting in some way? Like when I really think about this, I mean, when I'm using my phone, what do I feel? And the
Right.
number of people, when I ask this question, it's like, well, yeah, actually, I do feel something. Like with me,
Mhm.
it was like within a very short time, one or two telephone conversations in February 2002 when it all started. It was like a laser beam shooting energy into my temple, and it was a searing pain, and it was like felt like my brain was burning up from the inside out, and I got
Interesting.
hot head, this burning sensation on the side of my head where I was holding the cell phone. And obviously that's a very clear present
Very clear.
danger kind of response.
Right.
But most people don't get that. But when you ask people, okay, well, how do you feel when you use your cell phone? Then surprisingly, notably in cars, because cars are one of the worst places to use a
Because they're
cell phone.
enclosed.
Exactly. So we've
Mhm.
got what's known as the Faraday cage effect,
Oh,
which
right.
is like a microwave oven works. So it's like your phone is having to work harder to
Mhm.
maintain the communication with the nearest cell tower. It's looking for cell towers. Where's the nearest cell tower? It's like panicking. Where's the
Mhm.
nearest cell tower? Da, 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 da. It's working flat out to try and maintain connection. And it's trying to get out of this like Faraday cage almost
Uh-huh.
enclosure
Yeah.
windows where it goes out. And so that's why it's particularly worse in cars. But yeah, so these EMFs impact us in so many ways. And so really that's what I would say to somebody. Well, just think about when you're using your cell phone, when you're around Wi-Fi. So cell phones are an obvious one because notably using it in a car, using it in an underground garage, basement, whatever, using it somewhere where there's only one bar, that's one of the worst things you can do
Oh, because it's
because
working harder.
it's working very hard to
Mhm.
maintain the connection.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's interesting you talked about heat. When I use my cell phone, if I put it by my head, I feel my brain gets hot, is how I would describe it. And I've got now where I have a little stand for my phone. I can't hold it. I set it on a table away from me and I put it on speaker.
Yes.
And that's the only way now I can use my phone
Yes.
because otherwise it's very, very uncomfortable. I feel like my brain is literally like heating up. and very uncomfortable. I don't get the searing pain, but I definitely am symptomatic.
So this, Anne, is actually good news. This is the irony of it, because this makes you take action. You don't
It
need Lloyd
does.
to say, there's all of this research, there's decades of peer-reviewed independent research by independent scientists, which is out there, and you can go and consult this and you'll
Mhm.
see of all these adverse biological effects, how it impacts your cells and your DNA, and all of this damage it's doing to your organs and your tissues and everything. And that, Anne, is why you're beginning to feel but you don't need to understand that, because
Right.
you've got this pain, and that's where I was. So I had the pain, and then I went back to get the understanding, and I filled in the blanks. And
Hmm.
that's what I've been doing ever since, is filling in the blanks, because I learned more and more and more and more and more. And then I get to this kind of conclusion, which is a very simplistic one, which is everything is energy, and
Yes.
everything is energy. But there's really, to put it very simply, there's two kinds of energy. There's harmonious, coherent energies, and
Yes.
then the non-harmonious, incoherent, non-beneficial energies. And it's
Mhm.
the two sides to this coin. And it's really understanding that. And that's what I now share with my community, this energy mastery. And it's what I call it. And it's really understanding all of this, that everything is energy. Everything you feel, everything you think,
Mhm.
everything you feel, your emotions, it's all energy. And,
Yes.
this, again, the science behind all of
Oh,
this,
absolutely.
um, behind, toxins are an energy. And obviously, EMFs are like a frequency toxin, so to speak.
Mhm.
But every toxin has an energy. Why? Because everything has its own vibration. And when you say you go outside and you feel
Yes.
great, you're in nature.
Yes.
Well, why is that? Because it's the frequencies of nature. There's something very profound, and
Yes.
it's like plugging yourself in to this very coherent, harmonious, life-giving, sustaining, beautiful, intelligence, energy. And these cell phones might seem really smart, but it's nothing compared to the intelligence of nature. And
Right.
we are nature. We come from nature. And all
Exactly.
of is very seductive, and all of this technology is very seductive, but there is a price to pay. And it's there are simple things you can do to protect yourself from these incoherent,
Mhm.
disharmonious energies. And that's one of the things I've been sharing. That's really how I started out. And the reason I started out, because I'm quite a private person, as I said to you, I'm very set. I feel people and all of that. And I started on YouTube in 2009,
Mhm.
my living room. And the reason I did that was because I was seeing children using cell phones. And it upset me so much
Mhm.
that I thought, listen, I don't want to be one of those people, because I'd felt it made me sick, all of these EMFs, and it had lasted best part of 10 years. And then I
Wow.
went to the research and I understood it was impacting everybody. And one of the things the research tells us is that children are particularly vulnerable.
Sure.
And when I learned this, and as a father, my children were quite small at the time,
Mhm.
I was like, well, I'm not going to be one of those people who's like, I won't, again, I'm sort of quite reserved, not shy particularly, but quite reserved.
Mhm.
And I thought, well, if there's one thing that really will get me on a pedestal, it would be talking about this and helping people understand these dangers. And that's how it all started.
Yes, exactly. And I have an understanding of the positive and the negative energies you were talking about from a little bit different lens. My negative self esteem and my traumas in adulthood were coming from very negative energies that I had stored and retained and kept playing to myself from childhood. And once I was able to transform those negative um, self images, if you will, through adult perspective, reframing the situation, the memory, and applying the intent to heal and forgive, the emotional forgiveness, the freeing of that within me, let me let go of the negative energetics that were still impacting my adult life. And I think you hold emotional trauma within the body, just like you hold pollution and electronic EMF pollution within the body. I think the spirit, we are spiritual beings as well as physical beings. And I think when we address the causation on both of these underlying fundamentals, it frees us and makes us a more fulfilled, purposeful, mindful, compassionate person. And it makes us want to share what we've learned. And
100%.
that's the journey that I found myself thrust upon, because I never intended on going on this public forum. But the transformation from self-doubt, anger, resentment, almost the desire to get revenge, transform completely to a forgiveness and a loving and a light and a wanting to share how others can emotionally free themselves and move forward and express their own creative passion in the best, healthiest possible way. And so, even though we're focusing on maybe different causations of the energetic negative, it's still a parallel process.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So to bounce back on that, if you like, or if you, just to bounce back is, yeah, we are first and foremost spiritual, energetic beings. And we're back to what I was saying at the beginning, like energy comes first.
Yes.
And it's a question of density, actually.
Mm.
And so it's just that this physical form is more dense and we can see it.
Yes.
But actually, like the complete Lloyd is like, it's out here kind of thing. And
Right.
even then, it's like we're all connected, and it's like the complete Lloyd is even further. It's like goes all the way to you, and it's all part of you as well, and vice versa, the
Right.
complete and. Um, but we are, and again, this is something you can only, it's just words when you say this, but we are spiritual, energetic, and I'm saying this, and there is a difference between those two, but we are first and foremost spiritual, energetic beings. But being a spiritual being is actually something that you kind of acknowledge and you grow into, and you can sort of deny it, but I think it's kind of a sign of us. I don't know, maturity is perhaps the wrong word, but it's a certain understanding that you gain through life's experiences, that
Yes.
I believe.
I
But the
agree.
energetic thing is actually, we're back to more of a scientific understanding of health, and it really is energy, because
Right.
we can measure it, and we can't measure everything, but we can measure the effects of, like subtle energy, for instance, life force. We can't actually measure that directly, but
Mm.
we can measure in the body the impact of certain things, and lack of certain things. And because we're talking about things which are just so finite and difficult to put your finger on, if you want, for want of another word for it. But yeah, so all of this is a really beautiful journey, and it's things which you say after that I think people say when they've gone through some like trials and tribulations
Mm-hmm.
and deep moments of reflection, and then they begin to understand
Yeah.
that, and again, there's no stone thrown for anybody that wants to contradict me and say, look,
Sure.
I'm not energetic in any shape or form, when I go to my doctor or he tells me to take pills and all of that, and I'm good with that, and that's fine. And, people that want to say, well, I'm just, I just don't believe in God and all of that. And I'm not even talking about God, but I am talking about an intelligent universe. That is
Yes.
very clear. That's what came out of one of the things I learned from all of this.
Mhm.
Um, and we're part of that intelligence. And
Yes.
so a lot of this is about surrender,
Hmm.
because when you get really sick, you want to figure it out and find the solution, and that actually can make you sicker because of this thing which you were referring to with the autonomic nervous system, and we go into fight or flight
Yes.
sympathetic mode. And what you actually need to do is go into rest and relax parasympathetic mode. And
Hmm.
it's like when everything just goes, my God, it crap, I'm just at my wit's end, I don't know what to do. Well, what you do is you surrender.
Yeah.
You just let go, and
Mhm.
then you just wait, and you listen, and you wait, and it will come.
Yeah.
And it's not even, you could call it meditation, call it what you want, but it really is just surrender. And it's just, oh, okay, I'm still here, you know. Nobody, I haven't got any voices. So you get voice. I've never had a voice, but
I
I get
do.
so much. I get constant downloads, intuitions. I
Mhm.
have to go to a page in a book. I'm guided to do this. I
Yeah.
know that I need to speak to Anne and don't always know what I'm going to say. It just sort of comes out. And yeah,
Uh-huh.
so follow that intuition. And that's just the most beautiful thing, because when you follow your intuition, you're connecting to the intelligence of the all that is.
Yes. And I call that source.
Exactly. I call that source too.
Mhm. Interesting. One of the things I did on my healing journey, besides putting my cell phone on the table on speaker to help myself, is we started drinking only distilled water. I'm very sensitive to pollutants of all types. And I know tap water, depending on where you live, is varying degrees of toxicity. But I also found that I live in a state that puts fluoride in the water. And I feel like when I am exposed to fluoride, it prevents my pineal gland from working properly.
Exactly.
And I have been drinking now at home only distilled water now for a couple decades, probably. And at first we were buying the bottled distilled water, but now we have our own distiller. And so it's just on tap all the time for us. And I think that that connection, the pineal gland you were talking about, not only does it help us with our melatonin and our rest and recovery cycles at sleep, it acts like an antenna, at least in my experience, and it helps us connect to that energetic source, universal intelligence. And I'm a musician primarily, as well as author. And I last year alone composed over 200 piano compositions and some piano and voice, and have them all recorded. I'm a concert pianist. That kind of productivity at that level, I believe I am channeling the music.
Of
I
course.
take breath and gratitude. I place my fingers on the piano keys and I literally begin to hear the notes. And one by one, I play and write down, and I play and write down, and it goes to the manuscript paper, almost in a trance. And when I draw the double bar and set the pencil down, I have a completed composition in front of me that I never go back and change a note to.
Yes.
Now, I have a bachelor's and master's degree, both in music theory composition. I've composed symphonies, chamber works, all kinds of things. But these piano scores are coming through as downloads. And
Yes.
that didn't happen until I freed myself of the tap water and the fluoride, and until I tried to remove myself from the EMF pollution in my environment.
Yes.
And my music studio doesn't have anything that sends or receives a signal. It's clean.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be at the piano with my fingers on the keys and that direct contact to what I call divine energy or source. And then the music, I hear it. The music just starts. I hear it. I write it down. When I'm all done, sometimes I'm shaking. My whole body is energetically vibrating at a higher level. Sometimes
Yes.
there's tears. I find myself quivering when I'm done with these downloads. And at first, it would just felt like I was being fried. It was almost like trying to drink from a fire hose. But I have learned now to control how fast it flows in. And I can write this music down now at a level where it doesn't feel like it's frying my energetics. But you're talking about us being energy and being electric beings. When I'm composing, when I'm downloading like that, I feel like I'm just energy. I
Yes.
go into a state of just energy. And I think this is something that no matter what your creative field, no matter what your creative purpose, you have to understand that that energetic flow, if it's being harmed, we need to do whatever we can to repair and heal that energetic in our environment so that we can thrive and create and be the best
We
person
do.
we can be.
We do. And so to bounce back on the what you said about being antenna, we are, when you, and I've researched this, we are literally walking antennas. We are
Yes.
walking antennas. And when I say that, every part of our being, right down to our DNA, is an antenna. So what's an
Mhm.
antenna? It's an emitter, a receiver. We're
Yeah.
emitting, receiving energy and information. That's what it all is about. And because we're composed of energy and information. And so
Yes.
energy, informed energy, if you want, is what consciousness is,
Mhm.
and so we're conscious beings. And all of this journey that we're on, and as I'm sure you know, it's a journey, particularly at this time on the earth. It's about elevating our vibration to elevate our consciousness. That's what it's really all about. All of this, what we're
Yeah.
experiencing, and you're a bus driver and you go and you do your job, but actually you're here to elevate the vibration, to be part of this elevation of vibration. And so these EMFs detract from that, detract from this mission that we all have. And we're these walking antennas right down to our DNA, which is the blueprint for our cells, which is the blueprint which creates the proteins. We're walking proteins, okay? And we there's actually a research paper on that, which says that our DNA is basically a fractal antenna. That's the words, a fractal antenna.
Yes.
Dr. Martin Blank did some research on this. And so we're these walking antennas, and what one of the interesting things, so again, that these EMFs impact us, there's no dispute. And the peer-reviewed science is there. And you can go to my website, electricsense.com, bioinitiativereport.org, I think it is, which is, it's a lot of independent peer-reviewed research. Environmental Health Trust.org or .com, I can't remember,
Mm.
is another one led by Dr. Deborah Davis, formerly of the Clinton administration, um, and who's got her own story. All of the people have got their own story. Her story was
Yes.
with pollution when she was a kid, in industrial pollution from, I think it was
Mhm.
Pennsylvania, if I remember correctly,
Uh-huh.
and that's how she got into all of this.
So again, a
Uh,
personal healing journey that
a
has become
personal
a
healing journey.
passion.
There's always a personal healing journey behind all
Sure.
of this. And one story, so for people that are listening who want to feel connected, I actually interviewed quite a well-known psychic a few years ago. I think her name's Frances Fox, if memory serves. This was years ago,
Mhm.
and if memory serves correctly. And one of the things she told me was um, about indigenous tribes in the Andes, and how this and the the psychics of that tribe, how one day a Wi-Fi antenna was installed, And these
Oh,
psychics, they couldn't get the signal anymore. They couldn't receive information.
oh,
They didn't realize what it was. And then they moved away from the Wi-Fi antenna and everything came
and
back
it
again.
came back.
So that's just an anecdotal story.
Hmm.
But yeah, so these EMFs are really impacting us in so many ways. First and foremost, energetically. But
Yes,
then that trickles down. And even if you can't feel it, they're impacting you. And that's what these thousands of research papers tell us. And also that these effects are cumulative. That's to say, it all builds on over time. And,
right.
it's getting more and more dense, this electro smog that we're living in.
Yes, yes.
Therefore, we need to take action,
Hmm.
and I'm very action oriented. And it's
Yes,
always been about, what can I do to protect myself? And that's one of the things I talk about. And I can share some tips if you'd like.
oh, I'd love
Uh,
you to.
yeah. So I share what's called the and I say this in that way,
So you're
so that people
creating the
remember.
vibration.
Well, I'm just saying it so people like, well, that's a bit funny how he's doing that. So the is U for understand, M for measure, and M for mitigate. And this is my little protocol for dealing with
Oh,
electromagnetic fields, man-made electromagnetic fields. So the U for understand is, well, what the heck are we talking about? Okay, it's EMFs, but what does that mean? What kind of EMF? A cell phone, what kind of EMF is that? Well, that's radio frequency microwave radiation. If it's from Wi-Fi, what kind of EMF is that? It's radio frequency microwave radiation also. Your computer, what kind of EMF is that? Well, it's actually possibly radio frequency microwave radiation, but electric fields as well and magnetic fields as well. And so there's a bit of a learning curve, learning what these different exposures are and where they are. And then, so that's the first bit of the learning curve, which is the U. And I encourage people to research this a little bit online, different places. Yeah, my website,
sure.
not that it's the best, but anyway, it's
Well, and I would encourage people to go back and watch a documentary,
go
Electric
back and watch the documentary.
Universe. And where can people find that?
Well, they can't at the moment, but they will be
Oh,
able to shortly. We're working on that.
okay, good.
Um,
Excellent.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
And but electricsense.com certainly is a place where
Yes,
they can understand this and maybe subscribe to my newsletter and will follow my podcasts. And I talk about this. I've got the longest running podcasts on EMFs. You being a guest on my podcast, we talk about lots of things. Obviously, not we have lots of
sure.
fun, not just about EMFs. So first thing is understand. Second thing is to actually measure. At some point, you're going to want to measure, and it's not that difficult. And you can call an expert in, like a building biologist or an EMF consultant, and he can do this for you. And it's somebody who comes into your home with a whole load of meters, or just one sec. Here's a meter at the bottom. So I've got a bag full of meters, and this meter is not like the best meter. It's just a general purpose meter, which can give you, it's a trifield TF2, T for Thomas, F for Freddy, number 2. And if you put it on mag, it gives you a magnetic field reading. And I don't know if you can hear that, but it makes a noise a bit like a Geiger counter, and it gives you a reading in mg milligauss. And then
Oh,
gives you an electric field reading.
excellent.
Maybe hear that. No, you can't hear that. But that's the
No,
noise.
what I'm hearing right now is my tinnitus.
Sorry. And then RFs, which is this radio frequency microwave radiation. And
Oh,
it's very low here because I don't
very
have
low.
Wi-Fi. But if, for instance, okay, I've got my cell phone here. Should we do a little
Oh, this will
experiment?
be interesting.
So let's put the
Off
cell
of
phone.
airplane mode and see what it does.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm. Look at that jump. 63, 65. Wow, it's jumping all over. And it
if we
was
bring,
what, 2?
and this is so, and if we were to,
Wow.
so that's a kind of a general purpose meter, but I've got another meter here.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do that again, just to show people,
Yes, it's
with
fascinating.
we do this with this other meter, so which is more sensitive for the only measures radio frequency microwave radiation, and I don't know if you can see that, but it's quite low. And then I switch my cell phone again, you can see more clearly here.
Look at it jump.
So I've switched,
Wow. Uh-huh. Look at that.
and I mean, so that's, I've gone onto Messenger, Facebook Messenger, opened the thing, and if I like send a message to myself,
Uh-huh. Oh, you can just see it jump almost to the very top.
just send it, yeah, and if,
Yeah.
whatever I do, I mean, if I switch it on and speak, then it would be
Mm-hmm. Right.
through the
Wow.
roof.
And
So that
tell our listeners what exactly that second meter was. Can
So
you read
that's actually an
off of it?
acoustimeter, which actually is one of the first meters I bought. I bought that years ago. There's a newer version than this now, but that's an
Okay.
acoustic. It's a very sensitive meter, and
Meter. Okay.
I don't want to give too many, but I've got a bag full. This is a great meter. I could have shown you this one too. This is the more recent meter, and that measures radio frequency microwave radiation also. It's very
That's
sensitive. The
safe
reason
and
I
sound
start with this
protein.
The reason I start with this meter, and because
Mhm.
you can measure three types of radiation, of EMFs, should I say.
Right. That makes
That's
sense.
why I usually recommend this, and it's pretty inexpensive, like
Mm.
under $200.
Yeah.
Whereas these other meters are a little bit more expensive.
Sure.
In case, it's like seeing is believing. And when you
Right.
get one of these, you go around your home,
Hmm.
and like, above all, you go into your bedroom,
Yes.
start taking readings, and it's like, oh, I don't believe it. I've been sleeping in all of this electric fields and
Yeah.
magnetic fields and all of this. And is it any wonder, that I've got leaky gut, or I've got hip issues, or I've got this, or I've got that, or I can't have children, or all of these things,
All the yeah. Sure.
so yeah, so that's U for understand, M for measure, and then the third M is mitigate. What does mitigate? It means reducing your exposures, quite
Sure.
simply. And there's three ways to do that. First is to turn the thing off, and it's what I'm doing all day long. It's all day on airplane mode. All day long is on airplane mode, and make sure it's on full airplane mode. Your phone.
Hmm.
The Bluetooth switched off. The cellular connection is switched off. The Wi-Fi is switched off. They don't make it easy. You have to go in the settings and
Oh,
figure it out. But once you've done it a few times, you begin, you
sure.
understand how to do that. And so first thing, whatever EMF you're dealing with is to turn it off. And you go through your home, you do a little audit with this, room by room, plugging things in, switching them on, watching your little meter, looking at before, looking at after, writing it down on a piece of paper, and do like a little EMF audit. Do that maybe over a few days or a week, ideally, separating, every 2 days or something. Do it if you really want to go into it.
Mhm.
And then you begin to understand where in your home these EMF hotspots are.
Yes.
And again, the most important thing is the bedroom. And
Right.
then after that, why? Because as you said, it's in your bedroom that you heal. It's at
Right.
night that you heal.
Right.
And that's why you need to create this sanctuary in your
Hmm.
home.
Hmm.
And then how to mitigate, turn off, increase the distance. And that's what you're doing, Anne, is you're
Yes.
increasing the distance. And why does this work? So you put it on a little stand, your
Hmm.
phone, and that's fine, and use it on speakerphone.
Hmm.
And why does this work? Why is it so powerful? Because EMFs propagate in a non-linear form. Okay, so put that in other words. EMFs decrease in intensity in an exponential manner by increasing distance. And I'll put that in other words more simply. Distance is your friend. The
Hmm.
further you get away from
Yeah.
this device, this source of electromagnetic fields,
Hmm.
then your exposure decreases exponentially. And so even, never, my number one recommendation, right? If
Yeah.
there's only, remember this from today, is don't ever do this. Speak to
Right.
somebody like this ever again. Don't
Right.
do that.
Because you're putting that right into your brain.
Your brain, your most sensitive organ, it's
Yeah.
full of water. You're talking about
Exactly.
water. You're
Yeah.
zapping, you're zapping your brain, your
Yeah.
most, that's the command center. and
Mhm.
all of these glands around, your brain. And so you don't want to
Yeah.
ever do that. And so by just increasing millimeters away, literally, you've got just millimeters, Anne, an
Wow.
exponential drop. So you imagine if you put it like,
Yeah, I
arms.
set it on the table out there and put it on speaker, and then I sit back.
Exactly. So that is, so this is, so those, so first one is turn it off, how to mitigate, turn it off, increase the distance. Why? Because distance is your friend because of this exponential relationship with these waves. That's what they are, these electromagnetic fields. Um, and thirdly is to shield. And so for people that really want to go into this and go to, take it to the nth degree, then that is what we do, and we shield. But to shield, we need good meters where we can take readings before and after. And I won't go into that here because that's sort of a little bit beyond what we need to talk about and what most people are interested in. But yeah, so that's really very simply what you should be aiming to do. And I know everybody doesn't want to go out and buy a meter today, but already when you start, if just do the you, begin to just explore this a little bit. As
Yes.
soon as you explore it, it's like, oh, it blows you away just how dangerous these EMFs are, and why has nobody told me about this, and what's going on, and all of that. And then
Right.
you'll perhaps one day buy a meter or get somebody in to do the testing, and you'll really start to feel better. And
Yes,
that's what it's
absolutely.
about.
I want to encourage everyone to download Lloyd Burrell's free science backed eGuide to discover 20 signs you might be suffering from EMFs, natural strategies to protect your body at the cellular level, no pills, no gadgets, the EMF trigger that disrupts your energy, immunity, and longevity. There are amazing scientists and researchers studying how to harness consciousness to heal. All of these experts share concrete tips, the how to shift the needle and create radical transformation in your life. What do you think enables your body to be able to recover, or not, from anything? What if you could learn the science behind turning on that healing power? I'm talking about elevation of consciousness. Lloyd's free guide is a must for your life's journey to thrive in health and creative expression. I will post the link in the description below.
Well, Lloyd, I know you have some wonderful projects coming up. Can you allude to some of those?
Well, what I have, what I'm going to be sharing is my a free e-guide, which explores in a little more detail what we've
Mhm.
talked about today, the
Yes.
hidden dangers, talks about the science a little bit, gives very clear understanding of like what kind of symptoms, and also gives a 24 point. It's a nutritional approach
Oh,
to
excellent.
building resilience,
Yes.
EMFs, and it's science backed. And so that's what I will be sharing, and it's
So
free. And yeah,
one of your mitigates, things that we can do to help ourselves.
exactly,
Yes.
because we have what I call direct EMF protection, which is all of this kind of stuff, which
Sure.
is the on. And then we've got indirect EMF protection.
Mhm.
And this is this rounded, holistic, energetic approach to health, which I talk about.
Yes.
And nutrition and detox and all of that, and working with energy, that fits into this indirect approach. And we do all of that, all of this in parallel. And really, so it's really sort of it's beginning to understand that it's not just this. And I'm sure that your followers understand this, and you're talking about this all the time, and you're talking about the energy of this trauma, and of this journey that you had going through your attic, and how real that was, and the
Yes.
experiences you had through all of this.
Right.
Well, this what I'm talking about, this EMFs, is another energy. It's these invisible forces, as I called it at the beginning of our conversation. And
Mhm.
it's just very real also. and there's all of this science to support this about these dangers and how real it is. And really, it's, if you don't want to take action for yourself, at least do it for your kids. That's what I
Yes,
tell people.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that's a wonderful place to wrap up. I appreciate you being here so much. And I feel like you've empowered us with understanding and a path forward where we can help ourselves to live our best creative potential, which is, I think, where both of us have that servant's heart to help others live their best, most thriving, fabulous life. And on that, I will say thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Anne. Here's to your best life too.
Thank you.